to kind of put all this together for you. We're going to give you a little taste of some of the math tools that we have available. But before we do that, let's kind of do some other little housekeeping things. We have a chat in on the computer there, so feel free to ask questions in the chat. We will pause to make sure we get all your questions answered. We have some very intelligent people answering those chat questions for us, so you know we hear all of you. And also, whenever all of these get wrapped up and we kind of put all the finishing touches on everybody's makeup, these will be posted on our Learn Promethean site, and since you registered for these sessions, you will receive an email that directs you to all of those recordings. So they will live on Learn Promethean, which I love directing people to all of those resources. So, you know, if you have to excuse yourself to go get a new cup of coffee, don't worry. You can watch these later on. So this is, I guess, the finale of today, I guess, right? So we've talked about a lot of great things. If you realized you missed something, again, you will see these in recordings later on Learn Promethean. So, you know, don't worry about that. All right, so we are going to get started. So behind me, I have the 86-inch titanium active panel. Isn't it pretty? It's so big and pretty and bright up here. We are going to be focusing today pretty much on the Promethean Whiteboard app, which you get pre-installed on the panel. So I am not going out to any other devices today. I don't need my computer. It can keep my email open. But we do have the unified menu that is available from either side that you choose to teach from. And then I like to say that this one down in the middle is more for the students. That's kind of like easy access for the students. So we're going to go right into the Promethean Whiteboard. And I already had some things kind of prepped ahead of time, some images from the lesson that we talked about previously with the students. So this is what I'm going to bring Christine up. Come on, Christine.
Yay! Come on down, like the Price is Right.
Yeah. So previously in class, what we would have talked about with the students is this law of reflection. Okay, so we're not going to go through the whole thing today because I always say, nobody wants to be bored with all of my geometry excitement, right? So Christine, over on our toolbar over here, could you look for the button that looks like two little people? All right, so what that did is it took us into a multi-user mode and it drew a line down the middle. Now, Christine and I have different favorite colors. So we don't want to fight over which color we choose to use. So Christine, you can go into your color palette and you can choose your favorite color. I know, you always pick purple, right? I'm going to actually pick pink, all right? So once we're in here, Christine, can you go into the math tools and grab the protractor for me, please? Okay. Now, when we line up the protractor, all right, what we're going to talk about and what the law of reflection talks about is the fact that these two angles along that perpendicular line have the same measure, okay? So if you wouldn't mind, can you give us a visual on those two angles? Oh, you closed it. That's sad. That's all right. That's okay.
I'm gonna try again.
It's all right. It's right there.
No. Okay.
While she's doing that, I'm going to get my side ready because we can be working up here at the same time. This panel has 20 points a touch. I always say that is not 20 children, okay? That is utter chaos. But that is multiple students at the same time using multiple touch points and being able to all interact with the lesson at the same time. Okay, so again, the law of reflection, so this is our barrier, we have our perpendicular line, and we can give kids a nice visual on the fact that those two angles have the same measure. Thank you. All right, so what I'm going to talk about, and this is going to make more sense in a minute, because we're going to talk about building a hole-in-one golf course here. So here I have our little, we're going to kind of come back to this later and hit a little golf ball, although I think we would probably knock out a light if I really did that today. But up here, again, properties of geometry, don't want to bore you, but we are going to talk to the children about how these two angles also have the same measure, right? So that's what the kids are going to be focusing on as they make their designs for their hole-in-one golf course, right? So I'm going to close these out. I do, you saw us kind of working together, but I don't want you to get confused and think that, okay, we split it into two, so that's only 2 kids that can be up here at the panel. No, we still have those 20 points of touch. So again, this panel is nice and big. Is we could have a couple kids working on this side, a couple on that side. They can be working together. What I love about the multi-user mode, and I didn't really get into this yet, is it kind of locks them into place, right? So as Christine was up here measuring her angles and taking her time, we didn't want myself over here to move everything around on her and really kind of confuse her. So it's just something really smart that I feel like they have built into that mode. So we're going to leave multi-user mode. And then one of the great things about the whiteboard app is that this is an infinite canvas. So I can just bring over one of my designs for my hole-in-one golf design. Now, as the teacher, I'm going to kind of model a couple designs for the students so that when they get to the student work side of things, which we'll get to, that they kind of have some direction in where they're going with that. Now, as I'm talking to the kids about where they would place the golf ball and how it would hit, right? So if I said to a student, you have a very basic, golf hole right here, how do you want to hit the ball? Well, I'm going to grab my ruler first of all. And what's great about the ruler, okay, other than just measuring, is if I use my finger or one of the pens, I can just use the edge as a nice clean straight edge. So what I always said when I taught geometry is, I am no artist. I cannot draw straight lines. I cannot draw a good shape to save my life. So thank goodness for math tools that saved me and gave kids a good visual of what a triangle really looks like, right? So here we can use this ruler to draw our straight lines. So we are talking about an activity that is geared towards 3rd to 5th grade. So if I showed this to a 3rd grade class, and I'll explain why in a couple minutes, I think their first instinct would be just the straight line into the hole, right? So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to grab that protractor again, okay? And I am going to enlarge it. So now what we want to do is I'm going to make it big enough. And I'm going to change how this, okay, thank you. Thank you, Matt Barfield. STEM engineer of Promethean, STEM innovator, I don't know, whatever. So I'm going to change how my protractor works for me, right? So what you saw Christine and I do earlier was we were able to shade in an angle. I'm going to use this little red dot here, and I'm going to change it to blue. Why? Well, because what I want to do now is I want to find where I'm going to hit the side, the little wall, to get a hole-in-one, right? So let's see. If I look here, I would say that if I banked it off of that little wall, I would get a hole-in-one. And again, you know what? I'm going to change the color just so we can see that a little bit better compared to the other blue line. But if I had it right around, like, let's say 27 degrees, then it would bank into my hole. And then on this side, that's going to tell me that that would be the placement of the golf ball, right? So now the kids are seeing, right, from measuring with my protractor that this angle, again, is the same as that angle. And again, there's a lot of conversation that happened before that in the classroom. That's not something we're just picking up, in the moment there. This is, there's some prep work to that. So I'm going to close that out. And again, I'm going to utilize my infinite canvas on the Promethean Whiteboard. And I had some done ahead of time. Okay, so I want to kind of convey to the kids that we don't just want a boring, you don't go to we call it putt-putt. Is that a northern thing?
Mini golf.
Mini golf. Okay. So we don't go to mini golf and just have some, boring golf holes there. We want obstacles. So that's what we're really going to convey to the kids today is we want to put some obstacles in there. So this is another design that I came up with just to show kids that, yes, there is a way to still get a hole-in-one even though we have some obstacles in the way. And I'm going to go down to my last design. All right, so here I put a sand trap. Okay, spiced it up a little bit with some sand. But again, we are using those same angle measures in order to, show that to the students. So here's where it gets exciting. All right. When I come down here, what I'm going to do is I want to go out to my students and I want to show, what are you working on, right? So right now the students are breaking up into groups. They're coming up with their own designs, and eventually we are actually going to build these mini golf holes in the classroom, right? So that's going to be our end result. But we have to have a plan first. So I'm just going to use my iPhone here, and I am going to easily switch over to one of our wonderful mirroring softwares, and I need to do a little scan here, so give me a second. Perfect. All right, so I am going to mirror my iPhone up to our panel, right? And so you're seeing, nothing exciting, right? But you're seeing my phone on this 86-inch panel. So what I can do, and this is where I feel like the biggest oohs and ahs when I go to trainings, is I can pull up, and look, we're getting a behind the scenes view of the STEM lab, right? So this is where all the magic happens for what you see up here. All right, so what I'm doing is I'm creating a mobile document camera, okay? So now I can go and visit student desks, and we can go to each group and see really what they're working on in real time, right? So let me move a little bit. Now, this is a 3rd grade example, and I hate to be biased, but it is from my favorite 3rd grader, my daughter Molly. So she helped me out with this. I gave her a brief geometry lesson so that she could help me out and give me some designs of her own. So these are Molly Mark's designs here in the Promethean STEM Lab. So here's my favorite part though. I took some pictures of these, and now I'm going to go into my pictures, right, into my gallery, and this is Molly's first design. Well, okay, so we need to talk about this, right? So I'm going to use my unified menu, and with anything I'm looking at on the panel, apps, mirroring devices, I can use my screen capture app, and I'm just going to crop this down a little bit just so it's a little bit cleaner and we can just focus on her design. So I'm going to finish cropping, and I'm going to bring this design into my whiteboard. All right, so this is student design number 1. I'm going to shrink it down and kind of move it off to the side. I'm going to go right back into mirroring. I need to make sure that, okay, there we go. So this is, phones doesn't have the best service, but all right, so this is design number 2. So once we talked about the sand traps, of course, she had to make a heart-shaped sand trap. So again, if you know Molly, that's very standard. All right, so we're going to screen capture this one. Again, crop it down a little bit and bring that into the whiteboard. And then one more. This was her last design. So again, screen capture number 3. Bring this in. And now what this does is this gives us a great way to compare, contrast, and discuss student work, right? So now, I mean, I can pinch and zoom these. And what I also love is, you know, if we wanted to focus on one and really have the students give her some feedback or give that group some feedback. Again, I'm just going to pull up my protractor, okay, and I am going to, line some things up and talk about my angles. And then we are going to be able to tell her, nope, I don't want that. I need to change it to blue. We are going to be able to tell her, about 34 degrees, so 34 degrees, and we can really talk about that design and if it's something that would work to get a hole-in-one, and we can give her that instant feedback, and the students can use these great math tools, and, they're very user-friendly. And the kids, they get so used to it. It's simple taps, drawing their straight lines, measuring their angles. So from here, again, as I move, right, I can move our student work around and really be able to look at all those. So think about how many groups are in the classroom and how often, you want to be able to share their work. That was just with a phone and some mirroring that's already built into the panel, right? So there's, again, I haven't gone out to any other device. In fact, we disconnected them just because I don't need them today. From there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down more into my whiteboard space. Okay, so the next part of this particular activity would be for the students to transfer their favorite design onto graph paper, right? Because we need more of an exact design so that when they're building it, we can talk about scale and things like that. But I need a way to model this for the students, right? I can't just hand them graph paper and assume that they know exactly what I'm talking about. So in our Promethean Whiteboard app, we also have some built-in backgrounds, all right? So one of them, yay for the math teachers, is we have our graph paper, all right? Now we have our gray background and we have our light blue lines. Is that hard to see? What do you think?
I think so.
A little bit.
Make it easier to see.
You know what?
What if you did black with white?
Okay, so that's a great point, right? Because I go to a lot of schools and, we talk about writing paper. What color are lines on writing paper? Light blue. Light blue makes sense. But we get into graph paper and music staffs, which we also have. And teachers like to give feedback, and they were like, you know what? I need it to be a little bit darker. Well, great news, because Promethean gave you the option of changing those line colors to be black, right? And that's exactly what we need up here. So now if I were to, model this for the students, I could bring out my line tools and I can, show them how we need to make a more exact design for designing their hole-in-one golf course here. And so then, next steps would be for the students. Matt Barfield, are you a golfer?
My son is, but
Okay. So, once we get all of that laid out on the floor, and, that, again, is beyond this lesson, but I feel like this lesson and using the Promethean Whiteboard really helped the kids to do that planning, right? Because if I just started giving them pieces of wood and soup cans and things and said, here, build a miniature golf course, they're going to be lost, right? It's not going to work. So we need that plan, we need that instruction, and we need it to be easy, right? Which is what we're here to help you do. Are there any questions in the chat?
We've got some great feedback. People are so excited. Is there a way to make the line weights on your writing utensil thicker so it's easier to see?
My gosh, that's such a good idea. I'm so glad you asked. All right. So let's say that, so if I tap on my pen, right, and I tap on my pen again, and I missed it, I have 4 different options here. So I'm actually going to just go to the third one, and then when I want to, and again, sorry, if I wanted to build those walls, right, about where, how my golf course is going to get laid out and things like that, yes, so I can have those thicker lines, and then I can always change that and go back to my really thin lines when we're talking about the angles. But yeah, that's a great question, because sometimes you need different widths, and we're always thinking about that kind of stuff because that's what teachers are asking for. Any other questions?
Is there a way to change the brightness of the panel?
Man, these are good ones today. Love these. All right. Yes, there is. Okay. So there's a couple ways to get there, but I always kind of go the shortest route. On the front of my panel here, I have my center console. It's very pretty and illuminated. I always kind of gravitate towards just bringing up the volume because the volume is also including the brightness, right? And it goes away on me. So I can adjust this right on the screen, and then I can adjust the brightness. How's that look? A little bit down?
Yeah,
Okay.
I how it got back up.
You
We restarted the panel.
Yeah.
Go
So
back. Good down. There you
down?
go. Yep.
Okay. Is that good?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So, if it's just too bright for the classroom and sometimes we need to turn that down a little bit, we can do that right there. Another thing in here that I really like to show teachers that they appreciate? I love large mode. Does anybody else?
I love large mode.
I love large mode. I don't want to have to put my glasses on all the time. Large mode is going to make my unified menu just a little bit bigger. So I feel like it's easier to see and maybe easier to touch for students that are up here interacting with the panel. Yeah. Any other questions in the chat? These are good ones. No? All right. Perfect. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to kind of wrap this up. And I am going to return to, very easily, if I pull out my unified menu and I go down to recent apps, I can go right back into PowerPoint. Now, PowerPoint lives on this panel. Again, no computer, no other device needed right now. I'm right back in that PowerPoint where I left off so that I can kind of continue with my students. What I want to tell you now is where to go from here. Right? We already mentioned that all of these videos are going to be posted on Learn Promethean, right? So Learn Promethean is where you'll be able to find this collection of STEM videos from our STEM day. Also, we are having a Twitter contest. Who's tweeting, right? I hope everybody's tweeting right now. On Twitter, be sure to follow Learn Promethean. I always tell teachers that I talk to, we post lots of great stuff. Other teachers that are doing things around the country, especially with STEM, are always sharing and tagging Learn Promethean so you can kind of see what everybody else is doing with their Promethean panels and software in the classroom. And today, what we want to do is we want you to tweet. We want you to tag Learn Promethean, but we also have a hashtag, okay? So don't forget, because you could win a prize from Promethean for your great tweets. So that hashtag is NOV8, happens to be today's date. And what does that spell? It sounds like innovate, right? So if you use that hashtag, tag Learn Promethean, we're going to be sending out some prizes. And also, if you go to academy.prometheanworld.com, Angela Ardoin, we thank you very much that you are very helpful in getting us our content in here. So we have now a STEM course. It's live, right?
Yes.
Right? It's live now. So you could literally sign off of here. Don't leave yet. And you could immediately go to Promethean Academy and you could immediately just take the STEM course. Because I know on a Friday at 2:54, that's what you want to do, right? We also have a partner with NASA Eclipse. Lots of great content out there. So unless there's any other questions, I think that is a wrap on STEM Day. All right. Thank you for everybody else that has helped us put this together. We have people in different locations around the country, and we couldn't do it without the whole team. So thank you. Enjoy your weekend, and thanks for joining.